MERCS is a miniatures game of copper skirmish set in the near future. In this universe, multinational global system mega conglomerates, or megacons, replace governments in many countries. Traditional armies are folded into special security divisions and given the handle Military Economics Reconnaissance Counter-Security, or MERCS in short. In the MERCS miniatures game, players pick a megacon and a specified number of MERCS to battle. No points values are used in MERCS. In our example, a 3 vs 3 game is about to start. One player has chosen CCC. He chooses the leader, the heavy, and the demo. The other player has chosen Texaco. He chooses the Jaguar, the sniper, and the ranger. Each MERCS miniature is accompanied by a card. The card lists the specific MERCS' statistics and the kits the MERCS have, as well as any personal abilities. Before the first round begins, players determine their deployment order. Both players roll a 10-sided die. The player who rolls the highest deploys first. In this example, the CCC player rolls 9, and the Texaco player rolls 8. The CCC player deploys first. The CCC player takes one MERCS and places it within the width of one movement card from the table edge. The CCC player places the demo. The deployment alternates to the next player. The Texaco player chooses the Jaguar and deploys him. Then, the CCC player chooses another miniature to deploy. This alternates until every player has deployed their miniatures. Then, the player with the lowest starting roll may change the deployment of one of his MERCS. Once he is done, the player with the next lowest roll changes the deployment of one of his MERCS until all players get to redeploy one of their MERCS. Any player may choose not to redeploy their MERCS if they do not wish to. In this example, after the initial deployment is done, the Texaco player, who rolled the lowest to deploy, gets to redeploy one of his MERCS. He chooses to redeploy the sniper. The CCC player then gets to redeploy one of his MERCS. He decides not to redeploy anybody. Then the first round begins. A game of MERCS is played in 6 or more rounds. Each round is split into 3 phases: Initiative Phase, Action Phase, and Refresh Phase. In the Initiative Phase, players determine the order in which the MERCS will activate. A player declares the miniature he's rolling initiative for, then rolls a die. The rolled number may be modified up or down up to the MERCS initiative modifier value. In this example, the CCC player declares that he will roll for the demo first. He rolls a die, resulting in 4. Since the demo's initiative modifier value is 2, he may move the initiative up or down up to 2. He decides to move his initiative down by 1, changing his rolled 4 to a 3. The Texaco player then chooses a MERCS to roll initiative for. He chooses the sniper. He rolls a die and gets a 1. Since the sniper has an initiative modifier value of 1, he decides to move his initiative up by 1, changing it to a 2. The players alternate picking a miniature and rolling initiative until all MERCS have an initiative value for that round. The round then moves to the action phase. In the action phase, MERCS activate from those who have the highest initiative rolled during the initiative phase, then progressively down to the lowest. In this example, the Ranger, who has an initiative value of 9 for this round, activates first, since her initiative value is the highest in this round. In a MERCS activation, the MERCS could do one of 3 possible actions: move, act, or hold. If a MERCS decides to move, he or she could move 1 card length for every movement point or MP the MERCS spends. In this example, the Texaco player declares that the Ranger will be moving. For each MP spent, the player moves that miniature up to 1 card length. The Ranger has an MP of 3, which means that she can move up to 3 card lengths in normal conditions. The Texaco player places a movement card anywhere in the miniature's front 180-degree arc. Then, the player moves the miniature to either one of the 3 circles indicated, while keeping the facing the same. For each MP spent, the player may turn the miniature up to 90 degrees either side before or after the move. The Texaco player moves the Ranger to the top circle, then turns her slightly to the left. The player could also choose to not move the entire card length, but stop with the base within the confine of the card. The Texaco player spends another of the Ranger's MP to move her, this time stopping within the confine of the card. The Texaco player decides not to use the last MP and ends the Ranger's turn. There are no miniatures with initiative value of 8 this round. The next miniature to activate is the CCC leader with an initiative of 7. The CCC leader also wishes to move. The CCC leader spends an MP, then places the card. Since it is impossible to place the card down flat on the surface, the leader could use the white indicators on the side of the card instead. The player lines up the white indicator to the front of the base, then move the miniature so the next white indicator matches the back of the base. The leader spends the last remaining MP and moves one card length. Since the player can turn the miniature before or after the movement, the CCC player turns the leader up to 90 degrees and move him. All miniatures with initiative of 7 had activated, and it is now for any miniatures with initiative value of 6 to act. Both the CCC Heavy and the Texaco Jaguar had 6 for their initiative this round. When two miniatures have the same initiative values, the miniatures compare their reaction value on their card. The one with the higher reaction value gets to act first. In this example, the Jaguar has a reaction value of 5, while the Heavy has a reaction value of 4. The Jaguar gets to activate first. If the miniatures also have the same reaction values, then they will be involved in a simultaneous action, which is not covered in this tutorial. A few rounds into the game, the Ranger had moved into effective range of her carbine. When her turn arrives, the player declares that he'll use an act. An act is an action that allows a MERCS to engage in combat while shooting or melee, using equipment, interact with objectives, and many others. The player decides to shoot with the Ranger's carbine. Combat in MERCS is affected by range. Range determines the likelihood of weapons hitting, while some weapons work only within a specific range. There are 4 ranges: base, short, medium, and long. Base is only a base length away. Short is the length of 1 card. Medium is the length of 2 cards. And long is the length of more than 2 cards. In our example, the Ranger's carbine has a range of base, short, and medium. That means she can shoot in these ranges, but since her carbine doesn't have the long range band, she is not allowed to attack targets further than 2 cards away. The Texaco player declares an attack with the Ranger's carbine and measures the range. The CCC leader is within the range of her weapon. Each MERCS weapon shows the dice, firing number, and weapon strength. When a MERCS uses the weapon, he rolls a number of dice equal to the dice number. In our example, the Ranger's carbine has a dice value of 2, so she rolls 2 dice for the attack. The firing number, or FN, shows how easy it is for the weapon to hit. Any dice rolled that equal to or exceed the FN hits the target. In this example, when the Texaco player rolls the 2 dice, any of those dice that equal to or exceed the FN of 5 results in a hit on the CCC leader. However, the dice rolled are modified up or down based on any bonuses or penalties the shooter receives. The general categories of modifiers are range, position, such as flanking or having high ground, cover, and others. In this example, the leader is within medium range from the Ranger, but he is behind weak cover. The Texaco player receives a +1 to the dice roll from the medium range, but -1 from the leader's weak cover. However, to get to this position, she used an action that allows her to move and shoot in the same turn, but gives a penalty of -2 to her dice roll. With all the penalties and bonuses combined, she gets a total of -2 on the 2 dice she rolls. The player rolls a 10 and a 7. They are modified to 8 and 5 respectively. Both dice equal or beat the FN of 5 on the weapon, so both attacks hit. On the other side of the battlefield, the CCC Heavy wants to lay down fire on the sniper. The Heavy's attack is a template attack. Any miniature, friend or foe, within the template area each receive a number of attacks equal to the dice value. Fortunately for the Texaco, only the sniper is in the template area, so the attack is resolved only against him. The heavy has 3 dice to his attack at FN of 8. The sniper is on high ground, which will make it harder to hit. The sniper is also at a distance of long from the heavy. The heavy's dice get no modifiers for shooting at long range, and -1 for shooting at a target on high ground, for a total of -1 to his dice roll. The player rolls 3 dice and got a 5, a 1, and a 9. With the -1 penalty, the scores go down to 4, minimum of 1, and an 8. Since the FN is 8, only the die with the score of 8 hits the sniper. The results of these hits will be further discussed in the damage section of the tutorial. But in an actual game, the results of these hits will be applied immediately after the hit. Melee combat in MERCS works similarly to ranged combat, including the measuring of range. The player rolls a number of dice equal to the dice value of the weapon. However, instead of a firing number, the player must roll the dice equal to or higher than the enemy's reaction value to hit, denoted by the symbol on the card. Melee also has its own set of modifiers. Only mercs with the melee keyword can attack in melee, and gets a bonus modifier equal to the value after the melee keyword. For example, a weapon with the keyword melee 2 can be used in melee, and will give a bonus of 2 to the dice roll for the melee attack. Mercs with the melee keyword is also allowed to attack at the end of the move action, but suffer a -3 to the dice roll. In our example, the Texaco Jaguar declares to move. The player moves him to within base range of the CCC demo, then declares that he'll make a melee attack. With a die value of 1, the Texaco player will roll only 1 die. The Jaguar has melee 1, which means he automatically gets a bonus of 1 to his roll. However, he is attacking at the end of a move. The Jaguar gets no modifiers for the target in no cover for melee, +1 for melee 1, and -3 for attacking after moving, for a total of -2. The demo has a reaction of 6, which means the die rolled by the Texaco player plus or minus the modifiers must equal to or exceed 6 to hit the demo. The Texaco player rolls an 8. With -2, the result is 6, which still hits the demo. Please note that the Jaguar does have a special ability that makes it much easier for him to attack the enemy in melee, but it is disregarded in this tutorial for simplicity. When a miniature is hit by an attack, whether at range or in melee, the players must check if the attack goes through the armor and if the armor holds up after the attack. This is done in 2 steps. First, the players compare the strength of the weapon with the armor value of the miniature. If it is equal to or higher, then the miniature receives 1 blood for each die that rolled a hit. Next, the owner of the miniature being hit must roll an armor failure check. The player rolls a die for each hit, regardless of whether it dealt blood or not. If the value of the die is equal to or more than the armor failure value on the miniature's card, then the armor holds and functions as normal. If he rolled less than the armor failure value, the armor is now broken. Mercs with broken armor receives -2 to the movement point, and the armor value is reduced by 1. Additionally, some Megacons have special abilities that work only when the armor functions. Going back to the combat between the Ranger and the leader, the Ranger hits the CCC leader with both dice. Comparing the strength of the carbine with the leader's armor, we see a strength of 2 and an armor of 2. Since the strength equals to the armor, the leader takes 1 blood for each die, for a total of 2 blood. Then, the CCC player needs to roll 2 dice, a die for each of the successful hit, to check if the leader's armor holds. The leader has an armor failure value of 2, which means any roll of 2 or more passes the check. He rolls an 8 for the first hit, and 3 for the second hit, passing both armor failure checks. In the combat between the heavy and the sniper, the heavy's weapon has a strength of 3, while the sniper has an armor of 1. The strength exceeds the armor. The single die that hits deals 1 blood to the sniper. The sniper then rolls for the armor failure and gets a 1. Since it is lower than his armor failure value of 5, his armor is now broken. His His movement point is reduced by 2, taking it down to 1, and his armor value is reduced by 1, taking it down to 0. These effects continue until his armor is repaired. Finally, in the melee between the Jaguar and the Demo, the strength of the Jaguar's weapon is 1, which is lower than the Demo's armor of 2. This attack deals no blood. However, the Demo still needs to perform an armor failure check since it was a successful hit. He rolls a 10, which exceeds his armor failure value of 3, so his armor holds. If a MERCS takes a number of blood until it reaches his or her blood value on the card, the MERCS is killed, and the miniature is removed from the game. During an action phase, players also have an option to hold. Holding means the miniature skips his or her turn, but will receive a bonus of +2 to their initiative value next turn, which can be used to modify the initiative roll up or down. When all MERCS have activated, the action phase ends. In the last phase, the refresh phase, players check if anyone has won the game, as dictated by the scenario. If not, special actions occur and status effects are reduced by 1. Once the refresh phase finishes, the next round begins. In the next round, players first roll initiative in the initiative phase, activate their MERCS in the action phase, and clean up in the refresh phase. This continues until the game ends, either by going through a set number of rounds, or until a player achieves victory. In the world of MERCS, Megacons seek leverages and advantages anywhere they can get. MERCS are used to defend the assets, and in many cases take assets from other Megacons. Each Megacon has its strengths and weaknesses. Perhaps you will use the Kimwar's stealth to get close and wreak havoc, or maybe you prefer the quickness and mobility of the Cephadu. Or, you may reject the dictatorial corporations and fight for freedom with the FCC houses. Fight for profit or for freedom in the MERCS miniatures game. Welcome to the cause.